Mic check 1 2. Hello, hello. Welcome. This is going to be Just Human episode 364, I believe. 363. No, 363. I'm a little bit. I have a lot on my mind. I'm coming to this microphone with a lot on my mind. This is going to be one of those episodes where I'm kind of sorting things out that are weighing on me. And I'm going to present a couple topics to you. I'm going to go through some stuff. And it's going to be kind of the usual fare. But there's very much a problem I'm chewing on. And I'm not done chewing on it. And I'm hoping that through talking it out here, I can either completely decompose it, take the pieces of it apart and examine them for what they are and appreciate them and gain an understanding. Or I'm going to find a way to laugh at myself for ever getting all worked up on it in the first place, and I'll spit it out. I think it's going to be one or the other. Either I figure it out and, I can completely digest it and incorporate it, or I spit it out and move on. And I'm wondering, at the same time I'm messing within, this is why I'm kind of motivated to come here and talk it out. One, I think that it'll help me to do so. But two, I'm wondering if you also are chewing on this problem in your own way, or if it has at least been on your plate and you've thought about giving it a bite, and maybe haven't yet. I know I'm being non-specific. I haven't told you what it is. We'll get to it here in a minute. There's some other things I got to present first. So I'm recording this at a different time than I usually do record these episodes. It's in the afternoon and going into evening, but I just couldn't let this go. It's weighing on me. And there's been some news today that I've been following and posting about, and I've made some short videos on Rumble and YouTube about them. And I didn't feel satisfied after I put those videos out. There's nothing wrong with them, but I just feel like there's more there. I have more to say about it. And I also felt like what I had said in the videos really wasn't approaching, was kind of incomplete. I didn't finish off in the way I wanted to and arrive where I wanted to with them. And I'm not going to splice those videos into this. Instead, I'm going to just present it to you guys here in the podcast audience, and then maybe I'll clip it out and publish it as a follow-up. But we'll get to that in a minute. And then I have so I want to talk about some DOJ stuff. Like I did the last episode in episode 362, I talked about some resignations recently and some issues with DOJ that they're not really inspiring confidence, right? And so this is like a follow-up on that, but I have much more. And then I have some I have an uncomfortable segment over a trap that I think is out there for MAGA and the Trump administration, that I want to talk about, and it's not really easy to talk about. And then both of those kind of serve to take me to where I really want to go with the whole discussion. So if this sounds interesting to you, as vague as it is, stick around. Stick around for more vagaries with Just Human. My link tree is in the usual spot in the description of the show, and in my profile, you can find the places to follow, watch, listen, and support the show. Thank you to everybody who's made purchases at my affiliates, Benson Honey Farms bootleg products and Manly cans. Thank you to everybody who keeps my coffee cup full. I'm enjoying some afternoon coffee. It's delicious. And I appreciate you for buying me that coffee, which is what you guys do. That's what you guys do. Everyone who is a subscriber on Substack, which you guys are getting this episode first, as I like to do. I like to give you guys these episodes first and then publish them half a day or a day later everywhere else. I really appreciate you guys being a subscriber on Substack, whether free or paid, whichever one. But to those of you who are paid subscribers on Substack, thank you very much. You are the core of my support, and you're what make this podcast, the videos that I do, the articles I write, the newsletter that I have revived, Just Cases. You guys make it possible. If you appreciate the Just Cases newsletter, you know someone who would, please send it to them. Tell them it's free for now. Issue number 6 is free. Future issues, I'm probably going to put behind a paywall as a way to thank my Substack subscribers and give them something a little bit extra. I feel like that's something I've talked about several times before, and I feel like it's an appropriate thing to do. And yeah, I'm planning on I'm going to be working on issue 7 this weekend. On Rumble and YouTube, because they have playlist options, I want you Substack subscribers to know I have started a new series on the Asif merchant case, the Iranian agent who came to the U.S. in 2024 and tried to arrange an assassination squad to go after former Trump administration officials like Bolton, Mike Pompeo, and Trump himself, as well as some other things were involved in his criminal scheme. He's been hit with terrorism charge and a murder for hire plot charge. His trial is scheduled to begin next month, February 23rd, I believe is the date. It's a case that involves FISA, involves a lot of classified information, and it's a fascinating case, in my opinion. It's also one that's hard to get information on because it's also classified. And when it is in trial, I'm going to be working hard to try and get as much information about it as I can as the trial happens. I don't know how much I'll be able to get because it's federal, so it won't be broadcast, and there's no way I can. Getting the transcripts would be extremely expensive. So I'm going to be relying on people like Inner City Press and other reporters who I hope are going to do a very good job with that trial, but I'm planning on covering it. And so I've started a playlist covering it to the best of my ability. So I've started a playlist. I've made 2 videos so far, so it's going to be an episodic review of that case and the lead up to the trial going forward. And I haven't put these 2 videos on Substack yet. I'm considering right now combining these 2 and then putting like 1.5 to 2 hour long episodes covering the case on Substack so that you guys can listen to it as a podcast as opposed to going over to YouTube or Rumble and watching the videos there. So if you start seeing videos on Substack come up or podcast episodes come up that are specifically labeled, hey, the Asif merchant case, that's what it's about. Just something else I'm chewing on, cluing you guys in, bringing you guys along as I consider these things, making it up as I go, just like any human would, right? Okay. We're going to check in on some DOJ stuff. So this is that last topic that I covered in the previous podcast episode. Okay, opening up a bunch of tabs. Opening up a bunch of tabs so I can go into this segment. All right, the first one, I have news about Lindsey Halligan. And by the way, what I'm about to cover, I've already covered in this video right here that I published on Tuesday of this week on the January 20th. So disqualified interim U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan. That video right there, I'm not cutting that video into this. I'm covering it brand new. So disqualified interim U.S. Attorney Lindsey Halligan's 120-day appointment is now up today. Interim appointments have a lifetime of 120 days. And it's been 120 days since she was given that appointment, which Trump directed Pam Bondi to do, right? In a very public, true social post. So the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia has posted a vacancy notice seeking someone to run that office. And they say right here, hey, until the Senate confirms someone to serve as the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, the court is soliciting expressions of interest in serving in that position. because Halligan can't. She was already disqualified, but now she's timed out. And even if you accept the argument that Halligan was lawfully appointed and should not have been disqualified, which that disqualification is currently under appeal in the Fourth Circuit, and I'm watching it right here. DOJ just got a win, actually, in this case, because the court agreed to allow the consolidation of Comey's case and Letitia James. Both of those cases, they agreed to allow those to be consolidated because it's the same issue, whether or not Halligan was lawfully appointed, which if she was lawfully appointed to the office, then the indictments against Letitia James and James Comey are valid indictments. If she was not lawfully appointed, which is what Senior District Judge Cameron McGowan Curry concluded, then those indictments are invalid and they are dismissed, and everything flowing from them dismissed. So DOJ just got a win on January 12th where the Court of Appeals agreed that the cases could be consolidated. But this case doesn't look like we're going to get a ruling on it from the Court of Appeals until mid-March at the earliest, which is going to take us past the grace period to re-indict Comey. So if DOJ does not win in the Court of Appeals, which I do not believe they will, they'll have run out of time to re-indict him. All right, so anyway, back to this. Halligan's time is up. The 120 days have passed by, so there is a vacancy. That role could have easily and quickly been filled by Robert McBride, an experienced DOJ prosecutor and former Navy lawyer who was taken out of the Kentucky office of the U.S. attorneys to serve as Halligan's first assistant in the Eastern District of Virginia. But DOJ fired him last week. And normally, what circuit courts do when the interim U.S. attorney is timed out and the Senate has yet to confirm the president's pick for that office, the district court, whether it's the Eastern District of Virginia or any other district, will appoint the first assistant to the U.S. attorney, the number 2 in the office, because it'll be someone that has some seniority and experience, and they can continue to operate the office while the Senate does its thing. That's like the custom. That's the norm, okay? But that can't happen now because first, Trump's first U.S. interim pick for that office, Siebert, who the court decided to keep after the Senate had yet to confirm him, Trump fired him and put Halligan in. And when that all took place, a bunch of other people in the EDVA left. Then Halligan comes in, and what does she do? She has no experience as a prosecutor, so she pulls in experienced prosecutors, 2 from North Carolina and 1, McBride, from Kentucky. But now McBride, they fired. And Halligan's timed out. And the Senate hasn't confirmed Halligan. Why was McBride fired? Well, according to an article in MS Now and Ken Delanian and Carol Lenig, who I'm well aware of who they are and what MSN Now is, so salt this accordingly. But according to their article, the reason for his firing was that McBride held private meetings with federal judges in the Eastern District of Virginia, and Halligan didn't know about them. That's one reason that he was fired. Somehow that's going behind her back or something like that. And the other reason was because he declined to lead the prosecution of James Comey. So I don't know if they were looking to just go ahead and re-indict him. And McBride was like, there's no case here because there is no case. And I've been saying that since the very beginning, since the first time they tried to bring a case, there's no case. And a bunch of other attorneys from this office resigned because they said, there's no case. And John Durham said, there's no case here. And so many have looked at it and said, this case, there's no there. And the materials they used to indict Comey were unlawfully acquired. And more than one judge has found that to be the case. that Richmond's rights were violated, and so were Comey's Fourth and Sixth Amendment violations, and amongst other things that were wrong with the case. So it's not really surprising that if McBride was asked to lead some new prosecution against Comey, that he would decline to do it. But those are the two reasons given. The first one sounds kind of petty to me because everyone knows that her appointment was going to time out and she's already been disqualified. So it makes all the sense in the world for McBride to have a discussion, whether he initiated it or they initiated, the district judges initiated it, about whether or not he would be appointed or by the court to continue in that role and lead that office. And maybe there's something inappropriate about it, or maybe it's just pragmatic. I can't tell. It seems to me that it's pragmatic, but I can also understand how it could be perceived as him going behind her back or something. Although I think that we need to know, I'd want to know more about the situation and how it came about before being willing to assign that sort of color to it. Okay. I don't want to assume some sort of malfeasance or something unethical going on when there's a perfectly reasonable and pragmatic reason for him to have a discussion with the U.S. Attorney's Office, there's a vacancy. And that's not ideal at all. So anyway, Halligan, she's still Trump's nominee for that office in EDVA. And the White House is still backing her to serve in that role. But it's kind of weird, guys, because she submitted her confirmation questionnaire to the Senate Judiciary Committee on December 11th or December 10th or something. But she was nominated way back, and it was made official back on September 30th. So all of October went by, all of November went by, and then the second week of December, that's when she submits her questionnaire to the Senate. And during that time, Trump has been talking about the Senate won't confirm my U.S. attorneys and complaining about the blue slip thing and all that stuff. But the senators are saying the Trump administration hasn't even talked to us about Lindsey Halligan or anything. So it seems like, and since she hadn't turned in her questionnaire until December, but was selected back in September 30th, it just kind of seems to me like there hasn't been a real push to get her confirmed, although Trump's Truth Social post make it seem otherwise. And that's the first action since September 30th. And you would think, the impression I had was that, Trump and team are working really hard to get Lindsey Halligan and other U.S. attorneys confirmed as quickly as possible. But those Republican senators are being such jerks about it. I'm not entirely sure that's the full story. I'm not saying that that's non-existent factor in it. I'm just saying that I'm not sure that's the complete story. So who's running the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia right now? Don't know. Halligan was disqualified back before Thanksgiving. And yet she's continued to act like she's running the place and signing documents and making filings. And there's been one of the judges in this district, Judge Novak, has called her out on it and really had some stern words for DOJ and how they've handled the whole situation because she's been disqualified. And you can disagree with it. Hey guys, this is post edit just human or just editing human. I don't know. I'm sitting here. It's late at night and I'm going through this episode and I'm really kind of wrestling with whether or not to post it. But as I was reviewing the episode and putting in the timestamps and getting ready to upload it, some news broke that I'm going to get to here in a minute. But I also came across through, I just got curious and I went and looked up Judge Novak's ruling that was bringing up the issue of Lindsey Halligan's appointment And he dropped an order today that references and orders her title being stricken from all future filings and barring its use, barring her from using the term U.S. Attorney, signing any filing in the Eastern District of Virginia under that title, which I've pointed out, like, how is she still doing this after having been disqualified? And in this, he says something that's kind of, he's pissed. He's pissed. And I get it, but I just want to read part of this to you. He says, this matter comes before the court, response to court's January 6th order, which was submitted to the court and signed by Miss Lindsey Halligan on January 13th. Miss Halligan's filing comes in response to an order directing her to file a pleading explaining the basis for her continued identification as herself or of herself as the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia in the face of United States District Judge Cameron McGowan Curry's binding court orders issued on November 24, 2025, that found Ms. Halligan's appointment as interim U.S. Attorney unlawful under both 28 U.S.C. 546 and the Appointments Clause of the U.S. Constitution. I'm going, where's the next one? And then it mentions James and Comey case. He quotes the order. In both opinions, Judge Curry, meaning both opinions in the Tisha James and James Comey case, in both opinions, Judge Curry concluded that all actions flowing from Ms. Halligan's defective appointment constituted unlawful exercises of executive power. End quote. Ms. Halligan's response, in which she was joined by both the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, and the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, contains a level of vitriol more appropriate for a cable news talk show and falls far beneath the level of advocacy expected from litigants in this court, particularly the Justice Department or the Department of Justice. The court will not engage in a similar tit for tat and will instead analyze a few points that Ms. Halligan offers to justify her continued identification of her position as U.S. Attorney before the court. Ultimately, the court concludes for the reasons that follow that Ms. Halligan's continued identification of herself as the United States Attorney for this district ignores a binding court order and may not continue. Otherwise, Ms. Halligan and anyone who joins her on a pleading containing the improper moniker subjects themselves to potential disciplinary action in this court pursuant to the court's local rules. And I want you, as you go into, if you listen to this episode and you listen to me try and sort out some of my problem that I keep referring to, and don't worry, I'll get to it eventually, to naming it and sussing it out, picking it apart, and even resolving it, or at least going towards some way towards resolving it. I want to point out right here where he says that their filing from Halligan, Bondi, and Blanche contains a level of vitriol more appropriate for a cable news talk show and falls far beneath the level of advocacy expected from litigants in this court. I want you to remember that line because I'm going to talk about some things later in this episode that, I mean, they just resonate with that. And I had not read this order. I hadn't come across it. But as I was sitting here and I came across it, I was like, wow, that resonates with what I said in my podcast that I'm going to get to here in just a bit. Okay, back to where I was in the episode with me actually on screen talking. But it's kind of like, and this isn't perfect. I just think they've gone about it in the wrong way. Like it doesn't sit well with me that she was disqualified and yet continues to run the office and DOJ continues to treat her as if she is the U.S. Attorney for that office when she's been disqualified from it. And I know it's under appeal, but I don't know that I just let's put it this way. Imagine Obama put somebody in this office as his interim pick, and then a South Carolina judge ruled that prosecutor. Let's say Obama had someone put in there, was his personal attorney. He had one of his personal attorneys, I can't think of a name right now, put them in that office as interim U.S. attorney. And it was a hand-picked attorney who had no prosecutorial experience, was just one of Obama's personal attorneys. And then that person indicted Rudolph Giuliani on some bogus case that also had factual errors and that also had questionable things about it. And a judge ended up finding a dozen things that were, if not wrong, violations of the law, they were missteps or something that deserved more investigation. And eventually that case was dismissed. And Obama's personal attorney, who was also his pick for that office, a South Carolina judge, took a look at it and said, no, that appointment is unlawful and that attorney is disqualified. How would you handle and what would you think about and how would you feel about Obama's personal attorney continuing to act in that office as if they hadn't been disqualified? And just continuing on, making filings, signing documents, as if nothing ever happened. I know that would not sit well with me. And this doesn't sit well with me. And in Minnesota, as I covered in that other video, there's been those 6 prosecutors who quit, who resigned. And they say they resigned either over the DOJ headquarters pushing them to investigate. In New York Times, they're saying it's because of the widow of the ICE shooting victim, Renee Good. They're being pushed to investigate her and investigate the group that they were part of that was interrupting ICE. Okay. But there could also be other reasons for it. And that office, Minnesota, and then also Virginia, these offices are handling some really high profile investigations and prosecutions right now. In Minnesota, it's the ICE thing, but also the Somali fraud rings. And then as of this past weekend, there's also, let's see, that's not what I want. There's also this thing where ex-CNN host Don Lemon, and a bunch of anti-ICE people broke into a church during Sunday worship and started antagonizing them and harassing them, and they ended up leaving. A lot of people ended up leaving. People were upset and scared about this mob that broke into the church, and you guys have seen the video of it. And no one ever wants that to happen anywhere they're at, but definitely not in their worship center, right? And the whole point of them coming in was just to agitate people in the middle of Sunday service, which they've since defended. Don Lemon has defended what he did, and so has Keith Ellison, the Minnesota Attorney General. And it's a clear violation of the FACE Act. And I think we're going to hear a lot about it because the FACE Act, which is 18 USC 248, which is called its FACE, which stands for Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances. It was originally pushed about having to do with abortion and people protesting abortion. And it was championed by Democrats, this law. I don't particularly have a problem with it, but it's telling you can't obstruct somebody from going into a medical facility or some sort of health services place, including reproductive health services. But it also in here adds a line about seeking to you can't go into places where people are seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. You cannot by force, by physical obstruction, injury, through intimidation or interference or attempt to do any of those things to people who are lawfully exercising their First Amendment right of religious freedom. It is a slam dunk FACE Act violation, what is right here. And Harmeet Dhillon, who's the civil rights attorney, immediately was on top of it. And she's someone who is she's a massive I don't say massive. She's a passionate champion of religious rights. And she's one of my favorite Trump admin picks and hires. So I'm very confident she is going to prosecute members of this mob, including Don Lemon. And since that happened, not only did Don Lemon make some podcast episodes and talk to some people where he defended what he did, he posted, or I thought I put it somewhere. Where is it? Go. He uploaded a video of himself defending what he did, and he ends up incriminating himself in it. And there's another one, this one where he's defending the protest and saying, this is traumatic for people, and that's what protesting is all about. This seems like it's such a slam dunk prosecution. Anyway. So that's a massive high profile case going in Minnesota. And then also the fraud cases, which, let me grab. This guy, Joseph Thompson, who was the U.S. attorney for Minnesota, who just quit, and him and some 5 others quit with him. He's a career federal prosecutor, and he's Trump's pick for that office. His nomination went through. You can go down to Minnesota. That's the first admin. Here's second. His nomination, he was nominated on June 2nd, and he was Senate confirmed on October 10th. So he's only been in there a few months, but he was already in that office before. And then previous to that, he was in the Chicago office. He's prosecuted the cartel. He's prosecuted gangsters. He's prosecuted the largest COVID-19 fraud DOJ has brought so far, a $250,000 case of COVID-19 fraud. That guy did it. He's also currently investigating Somali fraud. And remember, Bondi, I covered it, but Bondi several weeks ago, posted all these examples of fraud in Minnesota that led to convictions, and people started pointing out, well, those investigations started back during the Biden admin, then the prosecution started in the Biden admin. The convictions and the sentencing have only happened since Trump's been in office. And that's true, but there's continuity there, which was my point. Look, there's continuity between that DOJ and this DOJ, which is why I try and make the point about how it's really silly how people just immediately, as soon as the president changes, they then just assume that the entire organization under them is changed also or something. It's just kind of weird to me. There's a lot of continuity between admins in all of these different departments and bureaus. And some of that is really good that's there, and other, it's not so good. This is one of the good ones. There's been 90 something fraud cases in Minnesota in recent years. Like since 2022, I think it was. There's been like 90 fraud cases, and 60 of those have resulted in conviction. And now this guy's gone. He resigned. He gave no reason for his resignation. There is the possibility that he could be going to DOJ Maine, because if you remember, Vice President Vance announced that there was going to be a new DOJ position for like assistant attorney general that was specifically focused on fraud. This would be a great pick for it, wouldn't it? So perhaps his resignation means he's headed for that. That'd be pretty cool. And that'd be pretty classic Trump move. This guy abruptly resigns, and mainstream media reports on it as if DOJ is falling apart and things are going so bad. And myself, I've also kind of done that recently. But then, whoop, surprise, this kick-ass prosecutor who was Trump's pick anyway and has this great history and all this success, we've decided to put him in DOJ Maine. That'd be pretty cool. I would love it if that was the case. I don't know that that's going to be the case, but that would be great. Still leaves us with the problem of EDVA. And then there's this other thing going on where DOJ has opened a criminal investigation into Jerome Powell. And it has to do with the management of money and the building of their new facility, the new Federal Reserve building. And Powell comes out and does this bizarre video. Very extraordinary. I'm not really I think a lot of people are really excited about it. I might get there. I might get there. What stopped me from being instantly like super excited about this is one, there's a lot of theater between Trump and him, and I don't mean to say that it's fake. I'm just saying that I think a lot of it is performative between Trump and Powell. And Trump does a lot of performative stuff, so that's not surprising. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me on that. But Powell making this video and putting this video out does come across as very performative to me. But the things that really kind of dampen me from getting super excited, like they're gonna find some sort of massive fraud scandal at the Federal Reserve, is that Rep Luna, not very impressed with Representative Luna. She referred Powell for a criminal investigation. She sent a referral letter to DOJ. It has no weight. She said that he made 2 false statements to her. So she referred him for potential perjury and making false statements to federal officials. The problem is, guys, that when individuals in Congress send a referral to DOJ, it doesn't have any weight. What has weight is when Congress refers somebody for prosecution, not when a Congress member does. And so she's kind of been taking a parade. She took a parade lap over this, and back then, and then she took another parade lap, or she ran, whatever, however you want to characterize it. She did it again after this news came out, and a lot of media was just like, yeah, it was Rep Luna did this, and it's going to be great, and she's really fighting for us or whatever. I think it's a stunt. I just think it's another cheap stunt. And to make it more than that, I think that strains credulity. And I think what's really going on here is exactly what the U.S. Attorney for D.C. said was going on, which is the U.S. Attorney's Office for D.C. contacted the Federal Reserve on multiple occasions to discuss cost overruns in the chairman's congressional testimony, but we were ignored, necessitating the use of legal process, which is not a threat. In fact, let me check. What time did this video come out? January 11th at 7:32 p.m. This is a response that a day later, Hero put this out. The word indictment has come out of Powell's mouth, no one else's. None of this would have happened if they had just responded to our outreach. This office makes decisions based on the merits, nothing more, nothing less. We agree with the chairman of the Federal Reserve that no one is above the law, and that is why we expect full cooperation. And so when you dig into it just a little bit below the surface, you find out that it doesn't seem to be this thing worth taking a victory lap on, and it may not even be related to what Luna referred him to. Maybe it is. It seems very premature, the things that she has said about it and the things that others have said about it as relates to her. And it seems to be a lot more like, I don't know, it could develop into something. But right now it's a request for documents. It doesn't sound like there's this boom criminal investigation opened into Federal Reserve Chairman Powell. It sounds more like U.S. Attorney's Office sends legal process over subpoena and documents from Powell, which could develop into something criminal, or it might not. Okay. Back to the Don Lemon thing. Harmeet Dhillon posted, and Eric Matheny, he's one of the worst Blackpillers out there. There's so many of them, and I'm going to talk about Blackpillers here in a minute. Crying about how no one's been arrested, and then comparing it to the Bubba Wallace garage door noose pulley thing. Remember that silly stuff? And it's like Blackpillers like this, and grifters. I don't even know if I want to call them a grifter, but just these people who trade on outrage merchants and clickbait merchants. The Bubba Wallace noose in a garage thing is exactly the kind of thing they remember. I haven't thought about that in years. But it got so much emotional reaction from people, and I'm going to table that. All right, so anyway, Dhillon addressed it and was like, what are you talking about? I have already assigned agents and prosecutors on the scene, and the AG herself, Bondi, has spoken to the pastor. We're on top of this. And then Shipwreck Crew backed her up and was like, religious liberty is an issue that Harmeet Dhillon was extensively involved in as part of her private practice. Defense of religious liberty is a big issue for her, and she has the FACE Act to use, which that's what she's going to do. And he had a back and forth with the guy, but he ended up, Shipwreck would know, he ended up revealing that Dhillon's division, the Civil Rights Division, that's the DOJ division she runs, is down over 50% in manpower. They went from 400 people on staff to 200 because of mass resignations by Biden holdovers and firings by her of many who didn't resign. So they are down by over 50%. Their first order of business was ending a bunch of cases the Biden admin had brought and that were still pending. DOJ as a whole, probably around 60% of DOJ as a whole is operating right now at around 60% of full manpower. And I think this is one of the most underappreciated, underacknowledged aspects of the Trump admin V2 DOJ. Is that mass resignations and layoffs and firings and all of these things early on in the admin. Not saying they shouldn't have been done, not saying that, it was some big screw up by Trump. It's just a fact that DOJ is not going to be operating at full power and full capability when it's only running on 60% of the staff that it would normally have. And then you got dumbasses like Thomas Massey who go out and get however many dozens, if not over 100 DOJ staffers to work on Epstein thanks to his stupid fucking act. And Epstein disclosure, great, but we have so many more important things to work on. And instead, right now, every day, there are hundreds, well, I don't know about hundreds, but there's dozens, possibly over 100 DOJ lawyers who are combing through 20-year-old, 10-year-old files from a guy who's dead, looking at airport receipts and flight database and emails and all of this stuff. And sure, it's scandalous. And sure, when something goes viral, it's either funny or it shows us how disgusting Bannon is or one of other Epstein's friends and just how gross they were and how we shouldn't pay them any attention. It's another subject. But is it meaningful? Is it making a difference? Is it actually furthering anything that has to do with law and order or the pursuit of justice? No. It's a waste of time. But Thomas Massie and his act and his feel-good ploy got all but one person in Congress and the Senate to vote for it. Epstein Disclosure Act. Everybody praises him for it. DOJ's at 60% manpower. And then now they got to go and put dozens of lawyers, and they're still going after it. Massie and some others are trying to hold Pam Bondi and others in contempt of Congress. They're trying to get a special master appointed to go over the Epstein files, which might be a good solution to it. It's still going to take for fucking ever. There's millions and millions of documents to go through, and you have to redact for victim names and people who are completely unaffiliated with it, all sorts of information that can't become public. Dude, it's such a clusterfuck. And that's why he did it. Massie and others pushed through that Epstein Act for their own self-aggrandizement and to drain manpower more from DOJ, which does what? Protects the swamp. Makes me sick. Anyway, so DOJ's down and all this power, and we should all keep this in mind, how low staff DOJ is. Now add in things like all of these people resigning from this attorney's office, and then the EDVA having Halligan appointed and others resign, and just the fallout that's happened in the EDVA, and then other U.S. attorney's office like DC that has had a bunch of people resign or quit or whatever. And we are not watching a DOJ that is fully operational. We're just not. And yet, look at all the success they've had with prosecution of gang members and violent offenders and human traffickers and all these things. It's really, once you know this, and then you look at how much success they've had, it's mind-blowing just how good they've been, especially the FBI side, how effective it has been. And you think about how much more effective it could be if they had full staff. But I feel like they're shooting themselves in the foot on some stuff. I really do. And the kind of stuff I'm talking about is, where'd it go? This, yes. There's like Bilal Asaili in California, who was disqualified as interim U.S. attorney there, but has been able to stay on as first assistant U.S. attorney. That was an exercise that didn't need to happen. And then Sigal Chadha, Nevada, another instance of someone being unlawfully appointed or not being eligible to be interim U.S. attorney. Alina Habba, another one who was disqualified. Lindsey Halligan, also disqualified. John Sarconi in New York. He's the latest one, Northern District of New York, disqualified, unlawfully serving as interim U.S. attorney. So there's like, why? Why are they making these appointments that are just going to get tossed out? All right, hey folks, it's Editing Just Human again. And again, a little bit of a breaking news story. As I was sitting here putting this together and just about done, and something happened that I have to include. So now I got to edit some things again. So before I get to the news that just broke, something I left out of the episode was this part of my thread. I said, and you're going to understand why I'm highlighting this, and I had to get it included now. This whole saga of specifically Lindsey Halligan being disqualified, but still making filings, and the office of the EDVA U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia, all the people that left because they wouldn't indict Comey, right? Apparently, reportedly. And then Trump has Pam Bondi shove Lindsey Halligan into that office with no prosecutorial experience, And then Lindsey Halligan reaches out and pulls in two very experienced prosecutors from North Carolina. And then she reaches out and pulls in very experienced prosecutor from Kentucky. And then, you know, what's going to happen when Lindsey Halligan's gone, and how are we going to look back on this whole saga? Well, I think we may, and I want to emphasize may, things could change, but this whole saga may end up being a story about how the push to prosecute just one guy, James Comey, based on factually flawed charges and unlawfully obtained material, ended up draining talent and experience from not one, but 3 U.S. attorneys' offices, and leaving one of those offices leaderless. And 2 hours later, a couple hours after I posted this, more than 2 hours, it was probably like 7 hours later, Pam Bondi posted that Lindsey Halligan's out. She's done. And she made this post about how Lindsey Halligan served with distinction and commitment, and she worked so hard, and she encountered multiple legal obstacles that were unnecessary and that were placed in her path, and she stepped forward at a critical juncture for our nation. And I'm just gonna bite clean through my tongue. I'm just gonna have to. I'm just telling Lindsey Halligan's out. As I predicted, as I've been saying would happen since the very beginning, and I said that they would blame all sorts of things, that they would blame the judges and they would blame whatever they needed to blame instead of just owning up to it. And you know what, guys? The simplest explanation is so often the correct one, and that is that they should have not indicted Comey. They should have said, all right, we had the prosecutors in that office look at it. We had all these people look at it. There wasn't they said there was no case there. And so we're not going to move forward on that. And we're going to put our resources, which I just went over, are very limited. We're going to put them to good use elsewhere. And here we are. Here we are. And I just wonder, you know, I kind of, guys, I feel like I nailed it with this comment. I feel like I nailed it with this comment. And I think that Trump messed up. I think he messed up. And why he messed up in that way, I'm going to get to in a little bit later in the episode. Because it has a lot to do with the problem I've been chewing on. And yeah. All right, back to me in the episode holding my head. And then that office, like how much it handicaps that office, I don't know. But it doesn't move things along. It doesn't help them prosecute anything. Maybe it's only a tiny bit of a setback. I tend to think it's more than a tiny bit. Anyway, what we want is for it to all be fully functional and to go after actual bad guys, right? And it's hard to do that when you're making questionable appointments who you know are going to be challenged. And then you're going to have to assign attorneys to go and argue them in appeals, and all of the indictments they sign are going to be called into question. It just, if it's not shooting yourself in the foot, it's throwing a lot of lead weights in your pockets that you're going to have to drag, you know? They're going to wait and slow you down. It just, I don't know what analogy to use. But anyway, after I made my video this morning, this one right here about disqualified U.S. Attorney Halligan's 120 days being up. News broke that DOJ had issued subpoenas to Governor Walz, Minnesota AG Keith Ellison, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, St. Paul Mayor Callie Herr, and Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriatori. And reportedly, this has to do with them facilitating what the ICE obstruction, or I should say the obstruction of ICE operations in Minnesota, St. Paul, and other places in Minnesota. And then news broke that Attorney General Pam Bondi has made a surprise visit to Minneapolis, which is pretty cool. Walz Frey made an announcement saying that like trying to diminish the subpoenas. We'll see if it develops into anything. It would be so great if it turns out that Thompson guy is actually going to be appointed to an assistant attorney general position, and fraud investigations are not just going to be run in Minnesota office. They're going to be run out of DOJ HQ through the Minnesota office. And this has been a super clever repositioning of a very capable prosecutor. That would be awesome. I hope that is what's going on. Yeah, we have a lot of people, and this is going to get me into, I'm going to approach this other subject I've been chewing on right now. This is nothing new. We have a bunch of people who want people arrested now, punished now, and they completely ignore the fact that these things take time. But I think a lot of them, they forget it, they don't ignore it, they don't appreciate that that justice properly executed, properly conducted takes time, because you have to get it right. Quick justice is dangerous. Quick justice is very quickly horrific. Quick justice is haphazard. It catches up innocent people. It misses people who should be prosecuted. It violates people's civil and human rights. It is a good thing that justice takes time, because it needs to get it right. There's a lot of people who don't want it to get right. They want it to happen now. And I don't think it's that they don't keep this in mind, or they don't appreciate it. I think it's that they don't care. They don't care because they have fascistic leanings. And those are the people who are screaming about how we need indictments now and arrests now. And if those cases fail at trial, they'll just say it's because the system is corrupt, and therefore Trump needs to step into a trap. What trap am I talking about? Well, this is my next segment. It's these people. The Boogaloo Boys are back. I absolutely loathe them. But now that Dems are in power in Virginia, now that the Trump admin has been active for a year and the Blackpillers have constantly seeded against DOJ and FBI successes, and these guys wouldn't care whether they were successful or not. They're anti-government, fascistic, anarchist, agents of chaos. And their goal is not justice. Their goal is power and influence. They are the counterpart to Antifa on the left. Oathkeepers are there. That gremlin, Ivan Raiklin, is there with them. It's all the usual suspects who are simply anti-government, anti-FBI, anti-DOJ. They just want to tear all of these systems down, and they're the extreme on the horseshoe of politics. They're the extreme right, and they're just the mirror of the Marxist on the left. The Marxist and fascist are about this far apart. And these guys and the Boogaloo Boys, they're just this far away from being the exact same as Antifa. Their language is almost the same. And sure enough, they're there. And, you know, if only there had been some sort of legal action against this asshole and his group that would have kept them locked up for years and years, preventing them from both creating bad situations and leading others into those bad situations, which is exactly what happened on January 6th. This fucker and his group, his friends, Proud Boys, they created a bad situation for well-meaning MAGA, and then they led well-meaning MAGA into that bad situation, resulting in all of the January 6th prosecutions. And I continue to think that Trump granting broad pardons and commutations was a huge mistake. And I think this makes my point. I mean, I think this is an exhibit of how it was a bad idea. It was a huge mistake. And I'm so sympathetic and agree that all the people who trespassed, I totally agree with their pardons. The people who simply trespassed, did not commit any violence, did not harass or obstruct officers, did not vandalize anything. The people who simply were in the wrong place without permission, a simple trespass. It's a ticket, possibly an arrest, and over a few hours in jail. Magistrate sees you, you pay a fine. I just fully on board with pardoning them. But these others who actually orchestrated the entire thing, they're domestic terrorists in my book. And this guy should be in prison right now. And he's not, because Trump got convinced that he needed to do this broad pardon and commutation of sentences for all the Proud Boys and all the Oathkeepers and all these people. And they're going to do it again. They're going to do it again, guys. Watch it happen. They're going to do it. They're going to do it again. And MAGA's going to fall for it again, because I don't think MAGA learned the lesson in January 6, 2021. And you have all this insurrection talk. Have you noticed how the Insurrection Act talk has ramped up following ICE stuff in Minnesota? And you have a ton of people on the right who are getting wrapped up in it again. And I remember I got wrapped up in Insurrection Act talk back in 2021 or 2022. And really what I was thinking about then was, did Trump actually use it in 2020? And we don't know about it. That was really what I was like, when I say wrapped up, I was curious about whether or not Trump had actually used it in 2020 in the summer riots, but it wasn't known that he used it. But I completely abandoned that pretty quickly after, because Trump made a post saying in June of 2022, I think it was, Trump posted, "I never used the Insurrection Act." And well, that's it. But the Insurrection Act comes up over and over and over again. And Trump brings it up too. But the media on the left also bring it up a lot. And then you have a bunch of clickbaiters, grifters, and just, they're well-meaning people bring it up on the right, but they're confused. And when Trump brings it up, which he's done many times, especially since 2020, he brings it up, and every time all he is saying is that it's available to him, which, of course it is. Of course it's available to him. He's the president. But people need to understand that there are some very dangerous people, both politically and literally dangerous people. They're mostly mainstream Democrats and extreme right paramilitary types like Proud Boys and Oathkeepers and Boogaloo Boys. They want Trump to invoke the Insurrection Act because it's a trap. They want it because it opens up all sorts of narratives and feeds narratives that already exist, and it'd be a playground for them. That's what they want. They want the gates of the playground to open for them, the amusement park to open for them. A lot of very gullible, though well-meaning and sincere people who genuinely support Trump keep predicting and kind of fantasizing about Trump invoking the Insurrection Act. It's been going on for years. And they seem to think that if Trump invoked the Insurrection Act, it would be some brilliant masterstroke that brings about a wave of justice or some sort of big reckoning or something. And they don't realize that they're actively promoting the trap. If Trump invoked the Insurrection Act, one, the time that it would have been like understandable to do it would have been back in 2020, and he didn't do it then. If he had done it June 1st, June 5th, around that time in the summer of 2020, it would have been so much more appropriate than it would be now. But people are not thinking about how if he did that, he would become the very thing Democrats accuse him of being, which is an authoritarian. Now, I'm not saying anytime a president does it, I'm not saying a president cannot use the Insurrection Act. I'm saying that they have so successfully seeded in people's mind that Trump is an authoritarian and that MAGA types like this fascist asshole is who we all are, that if Trump invoked the Insurrection Act, they would perceive it as being confirmation that we all are this guy. And it would be this huge, huge trap where the Dems would just instantly be able to make tons of commercials about it. They would campaign on it for the rest of this year. It would activate their base big time. It would undermine broad support that Trump has, of course, in the middle, and some people who aren't typically politically active, but who are supporting him now because they like a lot of other things he's doing. It would turn them off, and we would lose the midterms big time. The midterms are not looking super great for us. I'm not saying that I'm not predicting Republicans are going to lose the House in the midterms. I'm saying it's not looking super good. I'm hopeful that it can be turned around. I'm hopeful that the economy is going to ramp up and the economy is going to be so good, and Trump's going to be able to campaign on promises kept, and he's going to be able to activate enough people to get some key wins in the midterms that will help the Republicans keep the House. But right now, it doesn't look that good. I think we just got to be honest about that. And invoking the Insurrection Act would, I think, ensure that not only does the GOP lose the House, lose the midterms broadly, I think it would ensure that Trump would be impeached. I think they would impeach. They're already probably going to bring impeachment articles against him anyway after the midterms, or maybe before the midterms. They might bring them in and campaign on them over the summer, okay? Vote for us and we're going to impeach Trump. You should expect that. But I think they would successfully impeach him, or at least they would stand a very good chance, because a number of GOP would join with them. If Trump used the insurrection now, I think a bunch of GOPers would vote to impeach him after the midterms. That's the game we're in. That's the political game we're in right now. Now a little bit more on the where this comes from. Because I want to be I want to be very honest and human and sympathetic to the idea of wanting Trump to do something far-reaching, something epic that's going to just bring about a bunch of justice and, you know, just fix the world, fix the country. I am sympathetic to that, but I also think I think we got to elevate our game here. We got to elevate our thinking. And be just so much more realistic about it. I think Jesse asked me, he said, I've been saying that from the beginning too. Why would he do what Democrats are begging him to do? And I think just a lot of people on the right don't perceive how the Democrats are baiting Trump into using the Insurrection Act. They always have been. They're always baiting Trump into acting in a way that confirms what they accuse him of. And he's too smart for it. But there are still all these people on the right who end up helping the Democrats paint him in that light anyway. And then you got all these interlopers and these clowns like Jake Lang, the Q shaman guy, and so many others who just who LARP into it and just confirm or feed into that narrative the left tries to use against us and against Trump. And I think this Insurrection Act idea, I think there's a favorable sentiment towards it or an expectation of him invoking it. I think it draws upon a few key sources that are prevalent within the MAGA community, especially the perpetually online community. Us news junkies like me and probably like you, right? And I think it draws energy from distrust or loss of faith in the justice system, which I spend a significant part of my efforts on my shows is trying to counter that, because it's not based in fact. It's based in exceptions to the rule. It's based in canary thinking that every case that comes off as something you don't like is a canary in the coal mine that's going to expose how terrible the whole thing is, when really it's exceptions. And usually it's a bunch of fake news about that exception. But I think this sentiment draws on that. I think it draws on malign and often foreign influence operations that are trying to goad people into blackpilling and also set expectations in a way that's completely unrealistic, such as it can never be fixed. It has to be torn down. The FBI can never be fixed. The FBI is illegal. CIA is illegal. DOJ is corrupt completely. You just have to destroy the whole thing. All that thinking that was coming in 2024, people were saying that Trump was going to get in office and he was going to close the FBI completely down. And if you think about a lot of things they were advocating for, they're advocating for the destruction of law and order because they're fascist, or they're foreign influence ops based in Russia in particular, or China, and they don't actually understand how America works. And you can kind of see that in their language. And the other thing it draws upon is a hero or strong man fallacy that's projected onto Trump, where it's that Trump is a savior mentality. And I'm a big fan of Trump. I like him a whole lot. I think he's the greatest president since Reagan. I think he might be better than Reagan. If you give me a choice between Trump and Reagan, I'm really struggling. I'll probably go Trump. Okay? Probably. It's close for me. It's not because I see them the same. It's because I think I think each of them has massive strength. That has just such good assets to them and such good qualities to them that it's hard to choose which one to go with. But I think they're extraordinary presidents. I have criticisms of both, of course. But there's this fallacy that's projected onto Trump that is just unrealistic. Like me, like you, he's human. And the office of president, while it is the most powerful office in the world, that power only goes so far. But if you notice, there tends to be a narrative that emerges through people and the way they picture Trump and things they want him to do or think he's going to do, or they read it into cue drops that Trump is going to do something, and that or they follow some influencer that constantly predicts or paints this picture of Trump. And I believe I think Trump is a master of the art of war, and I think Trump plays 5D chess pretty often, but not everything. And I think a lot of people just project onto him this fantasy of a person, and the expectations are so unrealistic. And then that leads them to fall for these ideas of Trump doing something that's just way out of the ordinary. And just all of a sudden, he's just going to drop a bunch of National Guard everywhere, and he's going to round up all the Democrats and put them in front of tribunals. And it's just going to be this wave of justice. And then right afterward, everybody's going to be happy, and there's going to be rainbows and sunflowers, and we're all going to be drinking beer, celebrating the end of the Democrats, and everyone becomes MAGA, and the country's perfect. It's it's a fantasy, but it's seductive, right? Not only is it seductive, it's something that has elements of it that are tailored to MAGA, tailored to a prototype of MAGA, to a caricature of MAGA, to a profile that was built by foreign intelligence agencies and had bot networks created to support their operations, to influence you into believing things that are incorrect, or manipulating you into promoting things that actually end up undermining American sovereignty, national security, our law and our order, and our civilization. And so that's what this insurrection talk leads to. That's what this guy is all about. That's what these Boogaloo LARPers are all about. This is just the Antifa of the right. And we can make fun of them and laugh at them. They deserve it. But we should also appreciate how dangerous they are. And I'm telling you guys, we are going to have another January 6th. There's going to be another J6, and it's going to be thanks to these groups. And I think we will look back on this and consider it a huge mistake. Now, now I'll get to, this was some of what was bothering me and what I've been chewing on. It was, I wanted to portray this, but it also goes back to this DOJ stuff and what I was talking about with firings and layoffs and resignations and DOJ being underpowered, and then these high profile cases. Something has really been bothering me about all of this. Like when I try to hold it all in my mind, and it's been bothering me, and that comes through in my videos I've done recently about it. And I've made the statement that these things don't inspire confidence. They're really concerning to me. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to talk about next. Yeah, so I think it's time for me to get to what I've been chewing on. So as I've been going over all these cases and some recent news, all this stuff I just talked about, it's like something's been bothering me, as I said, and I haven't been able to quite name it. It's like gnats buzzing around you, and you can't quite, you just can't get them all or something. I don't know. It's just something bothering me. I don't know any other way to say it. But I started to pick apart a couple things that kind of approached it. And one of them is the notion that perception is reality. Now, I use that quote or that truism, idea, whatever. I've said that many times in the show, and every once in a while somebody kind of pushes back on me and like tells me, no, that's not true. And like, I'm not saying that's literally true. I'm saying that's how people perceive things. It's just a fact about humans. The way we perceive things is the way it is to us. Of course, naturally. And the stronger the perception is that a thing is the way we perceive it, the less the facts actually matter to us. And that's something that is used and influence you to perceive a thing or a person or an idea, whatever, an event, as being a certain way. If they can get you to perceive it that way, it doesn't really matter what the facts are. All that matters is your perception, because the way we get our feedback around the world around us is how we perceive it. It's like both literally how we perceive it, like in the physical world, how it comes across to us, like how you guys perceive me. And I think there's something going on. I think there's a bit going on with DOJ and the way it presents itself, where one, I'm worried about the perception to the casual news observer, especially in this midterm year. And then I'm also concerned that DOJ is too focused on trying to be perceived in a certain way. So as this new admin came in, you've probably noticed that they've done a lot to work on their spokesman and on their social media, and the whole tone and their whole approach to how they're engaging with the public is different from previous administrations. And a lot of it's the same, but there's been some difference, like particularly with FBI, Cash, and Bongino have been very good about posting on social medias and putting out more statements. about what they're doing and what their successes are, and uh, not getting into back and forths with the public so much as just filling people in and keeping people abreast of what's going on. And I think that's been a very good thing. And what I've liked about the way Cash and Bongino, who's now left, what I liked about the way they did it is they were very professional, um, very specific, very professional. They would just, like Bongino in particular would just say, "Hey, I wanted to fill you guys in on what's going on with the FBI or what we've been working on. I know that you care about this, this, and this, these topics or these cases or this sort of thing. Here's what we've been doing. Here's our arrests. Here's the investigations. Here's some of the key facts about it." And it had a tone to it that was um respectful of the audience, respectful of, audience, yeah, but of the voters, and was like bringing us along. And I thought it was a really good change with FBI that they did that. But there's been other social media accounts and spokespeople and stuff for the admin that are way more combative, and they're kind of engaging in social media warfare kind of thing. And I don't think it's that helpful. And then there's kind of been, like with Trump, there's always this theater that goes on around, like a bit of a circus, right? And I've talked about it. And I like it. It can be entertaining, but I also hate it. It can be really frustrating, right? But that's with Trump. And I think as long as it's Trump and it's around Trump, there's this bit of some theater, and Trump being a carnival barker and inviting a little bit of chaos around him. I think it's just fine because it's just part of Trump and who he is and how he operates. But that has trickled down into the rest of his admin. And I feel like this go round, there's something going on that wasn't happening in the first admin, where in the second admin, there's a lot more people who are creating that chaos and that they're trying to be like Trump in a way. And I don't think it comes off well. And I think it's lacking in professionalism. And I think that harms the Trump admin and how it is perceived. Again, not really saying how it is in reality, but how it is perceived, which perception is reality, especially for the casual voter and the casual news gatherer. Perception is very much reality. And I think what's going on, I think the reason it has happened is not just them. I don't think it's as simple as they're emulating Trump or they're not being professional enough. I don't think it's that. Or at least I don't think it can be distilled down into that. I think it can be distilled down into, or maybe not distilled down into, this discomfort, this bothersomeness that I've been chewing on and trying to figure out what it is that's bothering me about all of this stuff, and why I'm kind of having a difficulty with just going with the flow. And I really hope I'm not coming off as blackpilling, because that's not where I'm at all. That's not where I'm at all. Not blackpilling. I have concerns, and I have, mostly just concerns. But what's brought me some clarity on it is I think what's bothering me is that the Trump admin is playing finite games. I think they're playing a finite game of trying to win the media war, and they'll never win it. And the more I've thought about it from that perspective, the more clarity it has brought me. Because you got to remember, the Trump admin, like, they're in DC, they're in a bubble. They're in their own bubble of their day-to-day operations. And it cannot, especially as it concerns justice and DOJ and things that we're really interested here on this podcast, right? I think when you fill in the context of just how down they are on manpower, and then how there's this very vocal element of MAGA that is expecting and aggressively seeking instant gratification from them. And a lot of that is pushed by some certain people within MAGA who I think are bad actors, such as Steve Bannon and other influencers who are very blackpilly and fascistic is really the best word for it. I think people in the Trump admin, that as we look at them, they're in that bubble and they're coming out to interact with media, and they are trying to play this finite game where they're going to be able to get one over on the media in a way. Like somehow they're going to be able to win this game of Trump admin versus media. I think they're playing a Trump admin versus media. And they've lost the edge that Trump has always had, especially in the first admin, where he would just call them fake news. And Trump would talk past the media and directly to us. See, I view Trump admin versus mainstream media and a lot of social media and new media as being a finite game. But Trump, or at least they're playing a finite game. But Trump admin working over the top of media to get to the actual citizen, that's an infinite game. That's how an infinite player plays. And another way to think of it is this quote by Naval, which I happened to come across while chewing on this idea, what was bothering me, is I started asking, like, what game are they playing? Like, what kind of game would I think consider this that Trump admin's playing? And I remembered this Naval Ravikant quote: "The reason to win the game is so that you can be free of it." Okay. You can't win the game of beating the mainstream media. You can't win that game. They're always going to be there, and they're always going to be opposed to you, and they're always going to be fighting you. And it's just not a winnable situation. However, if you think about, okay, how can I be free of that game? What would that mean to be free of that game? Well, to be free of it would be to communicate directly to the American people, regardless of how the media recover it. And if you could do that, you would actually win, right? Like if I deconstruct this just a bit and kind of rearrange it, how can I be free of the unwinnable game? Because to be free of it would be to win it. And I think the Trump admin is trapped in a game, or a lot of them are, not all, but a lot of them are, they keep on falling into this game of trying to win a game against the media that's not winnable. And by media, I'm including mainstream legacy media. I'm including new influencer crowd, alt media, just all of it. Just all of it. And I think something has changed in the nature of how they're going about things to where they've lost that edge. And that's why I feel that's why my confidence is slipping. My confidence in DOJ is, in some areas, not all areas, but in some areas, is slipping a bit. And, I think back to the firing of Maureen Comey as being an example of where the Trump team decided to try and win a game with the media who was criticizing them on our own side, on MAGA side. The reason Maureen Comey was fired was not because of performance. The documents show that. And I haven't covered them on my show, but the documents show that. It wasn't because of performance. And it wasn't because of the P. Diddy case. It was because of people within the MAGA media world criticizing this admin. And what did Trump say was the reason why Halligan had to be put in office? What did he say? It was because we needed somebody in there who would indict Comey and would indict Letitia James. So it was for a narrative win. Now, as an aside, I still believe that the whole point of that case was about documents. It was never about getting Comey. I still think it was about getting documents. And I've done all my episodes on that case and Richmond v. United States. I feel like it's either that I'm right about that it was really about getting these Arctic haze documents and other things, or that's just a happy bonus. Okay. Like, it's either that I'm correct in that theory, or oops, we also won in this way, or we happen to stumble upon this disclosure, right? So either one could be true. But it remains true that the reason Trump publicly gave for firing Eric Siebert in the EDVA and having his personal attorney with no prosecutorial experience appointed to that office was because Halligan was willing to indict these specific people who MAGA wanted to see indicted because, and Trump said this in his post, that we needed a narrative win. And that is playing a game you can't win. That's also just it ain't right, to put it simply. Just like it's not right to demand all of these arrests to happen within 24 hours like that Eric Matheny guy was. And I think about those things in like that quick justice attitude, that demand. It's very toddler-like. That's what your toddler is like. When they don't get what they want and get it right then and there, what do? They get upset. And a lot of MAGA has been programmed with that sort of attitude by people like Steve Bannon and just the MAGA social media sphere. And I think the Trump admin is influenced by those things, and not influenced for the better. I think they're influenced in a way that is limiting, if not damaging, to them. And as I look around at the good things that have happened, I'm reminded of something I said a few years ago. Yeah, a few years ago. I've said it many times. I've said it on this program. I've said it on Badlands. I've said it at the public events and the forums I was in, and while on stage. And I felt like some people heard me, and I felt like other people were just like kind of whatever, kind of dismissive of me. But I've really had this concern that as Trump gets these wins, whether it's these violent extremist groups getting arrested and or whether it's Antifa cases, or it's draining the swamp, or it's Maduro, or whatever justice does happen, MAGA won't recognize it. because it's not whatever figure they've been convinced must be punished in some extreme way, or else the deep state wins and it's all over, time for a civil war, or some other black-pilled view, right? And that's the other thing that happens with this, with the Trump admin playing this game. Is, you're playing a really small game. And I think at the same time you do that, you validate that view. So I think that's one of the errors that happens when the Trump admin, especially Trump, I don't think that this admin appreciates how their base perceives a lot of the things they say and do. How a portion of their super active base perceives what they do. And that ends up hurting them. That ends up hurting the Trump admin. And later on down the road, it ends up hurting MAGA. Yeah, and I don't really know. I'm sorry, I don't really have an endpoint to all of this. But I think that's what's been bothering me. And I'm really sorry if it's made for a bad podcast episode, or you guys aren't vibing with this at all, or I've brought your vibe down by talking about this or something. I don't mean to. But I think it's a product of the Trump admin not just getting into the grind and going about what they need to do. I think when the Trump admin is mission focused and doesn't worry about what any media says about what they do, they're great. But a year into this second term, as of recording, we're exactly a year into this second term. And if I'm going to grade the Trump admin, which is appropriate time to give them a grade on their first year of the second term, I don't give them a perfect score. And a lot of it has to do with them. I think the whole reason the J6 pardon thing that I was talking about, I think is a huge mistake. I think that has a lot to do with this influence on them and them trying to play this finite game. See, that's where it gets you. When you play those kinds of games, you end up compromising on the truth and on principles. And then it leads you to make those kinds of errors that come back and bite you in the ass. That's why you have to stick to your principles. You have to stick to a moral, lawful code. And that's why you have to go about these things with professionalism. I'm watching this clip of Bill Barr now. I went back to my profile. Now I'm watching this clip of Bill Barr. These things take time. We really haven't changed much since then. Like, if I play this for you, we really haven't. We're still doing this, aren't we? Like, as a group, MAGA is still deserving of this meme.
So, nowadays I'm constantly hit. Why aren't people going to prison for what they did to the president? On the other side, throw Bill Barr in prison. And these things take time.
We're still there. And it leads to those errors I was taught. It leads to this type of a situation. Where even if it is some sort of 5D chess, super smart maneuvering that Trump and team are doing, it's not going to be perceived that way. And for all the wins that we can point out that FBI and DOJ have had, and some very, very significant, I mean, the stats are just extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary just how successful FBI and DOJ have been. Cash was just posting them in the past year. Like all of these, we got 300 indictments as regards just cyber cases, including 25 extraditions, 20% drop in murder rate. Seizures of fentanyl up 31%. Children being found, taken out of human trafficking, up 22%. Arrests are up over 100%. 1,800 gangs and criminal enterprises disrupted, a 210% increase. Let's see. Saving a bunch of money by shutting down redundant divisions. In 2025, the FBI doubled intelligence production at the Threat Screening Center, meaning more facial imaging, more irises, more fingerprints, just more biometric data. It's a 113% increase in gathering of that intelligence over the year of 2023. 5 of the 10 most wanted fugitives of the past several years have been yeared. That's more than the entire 4 years under the Biden admin. All these really bad people captured. 2.2 million pages translated. Okay, what is this? Directorate of Intelligence underwent a division-wide review to meet the demands of the field, and large enterprise-wide changes are forthcoming. 2.2 million pages translated. I don't even know what this is really about. Foreign language material, just getting things, just translations. Okay. Let's see. Counterterrorism Division, 707 arrests, 640 plots disrupted, 242 convictions. There was another one about extradition. A lot of that had to do with the 764 network, the violent extremism network. Prosecutions of violent extremists are up 490%. Those are people who prey on our children. Let's see, there was a stat about extradition, which shows how well DOJ, FBI, and State Department are working together to apprehend criminals that leave the country. And I'm not seeing it. 35% increase in espionage arrest, 43% increase as regards Iran, 78% increase as regards China, 20% increase as regards Russia, 43% globally. Do not see the one about extradition. Also, they already arrested a bunch of people who had something to do with them assaulting that FBI vehicle and stealing a firearm after it. They already recovered one of the firearms that was stolen. They've arrested a number of other people that were involved with that incident. Yeah, I'm not finding it yet. All right, editing human, back again. I think it's probably the last time I jump in, but I wanted to highlight. I did find the where Cash had posted about the arrest overseas, the extradition numbers, and it was top 3, but it ended up being there's 5 total FBI most wanted who were captured and brought to the U.S. this year. And there's been a 159% increase in subpoenas, indictments, convictions, and sentencings. plus 40% increase in global extraditions or foreign transfers of custody. That was what I was looking at. And where that has been happening at is a plus 144% in Africa, 38% plus in the Americas, so North America and South America, plus 32% in Europe, plus 240% having to do with the Five Eyes, the five major intelligence groups that we work with. What is it? US, Australia, UK, two others, and plus 67% Middle East. Okay, so what this is indicative of, like, let's just say that they're flattering themselves with these percentage increases and all of this stuff. I don't think they are at all. I think this is the result of seriously good work by the FBI. And as Patel and then Bongino also have talked about, what they've done is President Trump has given the FBI the directive to let good cops do good cop work. Let good cops be good cops and do the investigative work that they're trained to do. And when you let that happen, these are the results. And there's another number he posted that is getting attacked, and it's this one right here, saying 1 year since January 20th, 2025, under this administration, the FBI has worked with partners and executed 67,000 arrests, an astounding 197% increase from the year prior. And I've seen this number attack, and what he means by 200% increase is like, look, if we just do simple math and assume 22,500, okay, double that, that's 45,000, and then add another 22,000 on top of it, you get to about 67,000, okay? So about a 200% increase over what was happening under Biden. And I think this number is getting attacked a lot, okay? It's getting attacked a lot. It's getting attacked by two vectors. One vector is this number is bogus. The FBI has not arrested 67,000 people this year, and this is, nobody knows where this number comes from, and nobody can confirm it. And so basically it's an effort to invalidate the number. And then if you scroll to the comments in here, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to give these people any recognition whatsoever, but there are a lot of people who are posting various memes about how nobody I care about has been arrested. So nobody having to do with whatever thing it is that I think is so special, whatever specific person, whatever villain I've decided is the most important to arrest, they haven't been arrested, so therefore Cash and Bondi are failures. And you see that everywhere in the comments. It's the usual Blackpillers and pro Oathkeeper people. That should tell you something. So they're attacking it simply because it's not what they want. But it's a not good enough complaint. But guess what? It'll never be good enough. Do you guys remember what I've posted before about the Doomers refrain? Like, this is what Doomers are. Now would be a great time for me to post it again, wouldn't it? I should probably do that. Where'd it go? Where is my Doomers refrain? I figured I would search it and it would pop right back up, but did not. Where is it? I know I've posted it on here before. Hold up. I'm going to pull it off of. I'm just going to post it again. I'll just post it again. Let me find my copy of it. I have it written out. It's one of my favorite things I've ever written. What is... There it is. This has got to be it. Nope, that wasn't it. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, now I found it. Finally found it. Took me a moment. This is a very pro show. All right, guys, I'm going to tweet this out while recording this. There we go. Oh. Bam. There we go. The doomer's refrain, but nothing is happening. And if it is happening, it's too late. And if it's not too late, then it's not good enough. And if it is good enough, then it's the last thing that will happen. And we'll be right back to, but nothing is happening. Doomer's gonna doom. All right. So anyway, that's their take on this. And I want to get to, I want to share with you guys this clip of Cash talking. Let me turn down my music all the way. This clip of Cash, I think, is really good. And I think it's good because it's Cash doing what I think the administration needs to do more of, which is just direct communication to the American people. Don't try and get into combat with the media. Don't try and get into narrative exchanges. I understand the narrative war. I think so many times they get into it and it's a misdirection. It's a waste of resources, and it's an unwinnable finite game. So the way to deal with the finite game is to not play it, and instead play the infinite game. And the infinite game is direct communication to the people, constant pursuit of your objectives, do the work, and people will recognize you at some point. But the recognition doesn't even matter. All that matters is that you do the good work, whether it's recognized or not. So bam, just do that. And I think this is an example of Cash doing it, although he does have to put on his media hat a bit here. Overall, it's an excellent appearance. And also, one last thing on the 67,000 criminal arrest, the people that are trying to invalidate that number, I don't think he means literally the FBI themselves, an FBI agent put cuffs on a person, on a suspect 67,000 times. I think what he's talking about is the FBI being partners. The FBI working with other law enforcement. And through all of that cooperation, a total of 67,000 arrests have occurred. So that's U.S. Marshals, that's DEA, that's local cops, that's state police, that's sheriffs, that's all of that. All the different law enforcement agencies working together, DHS, ICE, the FBI has assisted, has worked with, has enabled, has supported 67,000 arrests. So as people try and invalidate that number, you can tell them, no, it's not literally saying FBI agents did 67,000 arrests. It's saying the FBI has worked with partners and executed 67,000 arrests. Who are FBI's partners? It's DHS, HSI, DEA, ICE, it's local police, it's state police, it's all of that. Okay. All right. So that's that invalidation solved, right?
Arrests more than 450 victims. If you look at where we were a year ago today, the FBI working with their partners, an amazing 67,000 arrests, which is a 200% increase from the year prior. Rather impressive, Director.
Let's just break down those numbers and hit pause for a second. 67,000 criminal arrests by this FBI under President Trump and the Department of Justice. That is a 200% increase. We're talking about lives saved. We're talking about children safeguarded. We're talking about murders prevented. A 210% increase in criminal gangs taken down. Trende Aragua and other criminal gangs. We're talking about 6,000 child victims found and located. We're talking about the seizure of 150 million lethal doses of fentanyl. That's up 31%. These are just some of the record-breaking numbers President Trump has delivered, and this FBI is tremendously proud to be leading out on this effort. The numbers continue. We're not just talking about violent felon arrest alone. We're saving the American taxpayer while we do it. We slashed $314 million in wasteful contracts immediately. We took another $1.2 billion sledgehammer to bogus contracts, legacy contracts from the Biden administration. That's nearly 10% of our budget. And we're also moving into a new FBI headquarters, saving the taxpayers $5 billion from the behemoth that the Congress and others wanted to build in Maryland. We're giving the FBI a safe, secure workplace in the Ronald Reagan building. We're already making that move. And when that move is complete, we are going to shut down the Hoover building once and for all, which has been a sign of weaponization of law enforcement that we have been battling and continue to battle. It is more than just putting out statistics. We are saving lives at a record pace, and that's because this FBI is getting after it with our state and local partners and our interagency partners, and the Department of Justice is leading out on compelling prosecutions from coast to coast.
Plus,
all right, back to back to where I was on screen talking. I hope this segment kind of is. I hope I'm not coming off too dour or down. I don't mean to in the episode. I just went through highlighting all the good stuff going on, and the reason I did is because I wanted to show, like that's direct communication from the FBI, professional communication, and they're not really trying to combat, even though it does naturally combat the dooming and blackpilling. And it has to, it does, but that's not what he's trying to do. It's just professional statements like, this is the work we're doing for you, and then there's not any engagement with the Blackpillers and doomers and their narrative warfare that is playing out against this man, which so many of them directly target cash every single day, all day long, online, in their podcast, in their episodes, because they're actually anti-law and order and pro-fascism and pro-mob rule, mob justice. So populist justice. Anyway, all right. Anyway, there's all these good things, right? There's so many success stories to tell. And not just with the stuff that I'm particularly interested in, like FBI, DOJ, a lot of other areas of the Trump admin that have these really good success stories to tell. Compelling success stories that matter, successes that matter to the American public. And I feel like it's that much harder to tell those stories because of this other stuff. And I think it's some of it is their own goals. There are some own goals. So, and I think a lot of those own goals can be attributed to the admin playing finite games when they should be playing infinite ones. All right. I'm interested in your thoughts on it. Maybe I know I'm not completely off base here. But perhaps just because I'm so into this and I'm so, like in the news cycle, consuming this stuff, I'm over appreciating certain things about it. And in the end, it's just none of this is really going to matter that much. The midterms are going to come around and people are going to vote based on the economy and based on primarily the economy. But number two is going to be social status and social influences. That's where this stuff is going to do damage, I think. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts, please. And I can't get rid of this tone that sounds like I'm down when I'm really not down. It's just that I'm really chewing on this. And I want so badly for this admin to succeed. Because I think that's the way that we preserve its legacy I think that's the way we preserve this incredible moment that we're living through. So that's really where I'm coming from. It's not a place of, oh, they're screwing it up and I know so much better than them or anything like that. It's coming from a place of, man, I really, really care about this movement, about this president, about this moment, and the opportunity we have to improve the country, to improve these agencies and these bureaus, to make the country safer, to make the country more free, to preserve liberty where we can, to enhance liberty in other areas, to just all of these things. And I think there's just so much good that has happened. And I don't want that to be obscured by a bunch of nonsense. And I don't want these assholes who are determined to blackpill and are doing a really good job of blackpilling and have set unattainable goals that the Trump admin never had. I don't want them to succeed, because what they're going to do is they're going to pull a bunch of MAGA people away from where Trump's trying to lead us, and they're going to pull them into a place that is dark. And I don't want that to happen. So I just had a thought. Oh, I just had a very Jungian thought. I just had a very, very Jungian thought where I'm seeing how I am projecting yeah. I'm starting to perceive how I got to think about this for a minute. Okay, I had to think. And see, I told you guys I was coming to the microphone with something, and I was going to try and sort it out. And I was either going to, at the end of it, laugh at myself, or I was going to properly deconstruct it. And I think I've done a bit of both. I'm gonna do a bit of, I'm laughing at myself. But I also think I've got it a bit sussed out. And that is, I'm appreciating how part of me, what I'm projecting is the way I value things and perceive them, and I'm kind of transferring that onto others. So some people, they're gonna judge, or the way they appreciate the actions that people take in office is through the accomplishments. So specific comment, just like you talk to someone, and if you ask them what's going on in their life, or tell me about yourself, or something like that, that person may tell you a story about, so you're just inquiring about who they are as a person. Okay. That person may tell you a story about their accomplishments in life, where they went to school, what their degrees are, what jobs they've had, where they've been, and what they've done. And the framing of it, there's nothing wrong with this whatsoever, but the framing of it will be, here are my accomplishments in life. And then you might ask another person about who they are, what they've done, like, what they've done, but just tell me about yourself, open-ended question. And the way they start off, or the way they end up going, is to tell you a story about their self-discovery and their experience in the world. And I'm more so the latter, where if you inquire about me open-endedly, to tell you about myself, about my life, I'm not going to really talk to you about accomplishments in the traditional sense. I'm going to talk to you about my experiences, my family, my struggles, stories of redemption, of overcoming, stories of self-discovery. Neither neither one is wrong. It's just a matter of it's part of your own view of yourself and of the world around you. And as I'm watching and perceiving the news cycles and wondering about how people are going to perceive it and wondering what they're going to be thinking as we go into this voting year, and as I'm thinking about the movement that I've been a part of, very tiny part of, with MAGA, and this moment, this moment we're in politics, which I care very much about, I'm wanting it to develop into an experience that evokes way more positivity and confidence than it's currently doing, based on just some recent news stories and certain things. And it hits home for me because where did I start with this podcast? I started out talking about how, guys, don't be so black-pilled about this justice stuff. Look at all these great cases going on. And that has only increased. I mean, if you think about it, back in 2021, I was doing shows highlighting different swamp draining cases that I thought were like, hey, look, here's a white pill here. Here's another white pill. Here's some good stuff. You know, and that was how I was finding white pills and dosing them out as a means of combating the black pills. And here we are 5 years later, still doing that. And they're everywhere. The white pills are everywhere, and yet it seems like the black pills are everywhere as well. And so that causes me to that causes me to reckon with whether I've been playing a finite game or an infinite one, right? I've slipped into a finite game. Oh, that's some humble pie right there. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. Introspection through a podcast mic. That's some humble pie right there. I've been taking a finite game approach. Whereas I was on an infinite game of just find the white pills. Just find the stuff that is positive and that I like talking about, and just share those and let everything else fall into place. And now I'm not taking back my analysis about some stuff. I still think that there's some merit to the various things I brought up with about Trump admin people. I still think they're playing a finite game too with the media. But again, I'm realizing how much of a mirror there exists between what I was saying about that and then also how I've been going about it. Very interesting. Very humbling. Or maybe sobering. Both. Bit of both. I have this is the kind of episode that I have no idea how this has come off. You may just be like, you guys may have turned off a while back, but I feel better. And I'm laughing about it. Okay, that's going to be the end of this podcast episode. This is more of a personal. This is like a true podcast, not just like a topic by topic information. This is true. Just Kyle talking in the mic about stuff, and even though I definitely don't have it all figured out, and I would welcome your thoughts. Just human. I'm just human. And yeah. All right. Y'all stay positive. God bless you. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for this this therapy session with me. I needed it. If you needed it too, let me know in the comments. If you've been laughing at me the whole time, let me know in the comments. If you think I'm wrong about anything or everything, sure, go ahead and let me know in the comments. All right. You'll see me in the next episode. Stay blessed.